Good morning. After some discussions on life and death and love and the meaning of it all, and how one does give meaning to it, a viewer of this series sent me the following item entitled, All This Forgotten Love. During the 1960s, I was visiting an old house in Stockholm that was undergoing renovation work. My visit coincided with some of the men working on the house's foundations making a discovery. They found an empty Pilsner bottle containing a sealed message. Using a blunt carpenter's pencil, someone had written, "I sat here with my beloved one beautiful summer's evening in 1868. No names, no signatures, just this euphorically happy message to an unknown future. Everybody I know has at some time carved their name onto a tree in the woods or scratched their signature onto a cliff by the sea. Nobody wants to be forgotten, but nearly everybody is." Well, people forever quote hallmark platitudes as to a reality in which, as long as one is remembered, they have not really died, or are not really gone, or sharing tales of those we've lost is how we keep from really losing them. Nice platitudes, but are forgotten people more dead than others? In fact, what about those people who are not dead, but whom you've forgotten? Does that have some impact on their reality while they live or after they die? How many people have I forgotten? What has that done to them? Well, I tried to make a list of all my school teachers and could remember fewer than half of their names, and then it was only with the surname with a Mr. or Mrs. affixed to it. As for my fellow students, only the ones that were really close to me, or the ones who particularly tormented me, are to be found in my memory banks. So what does that say about me, or them? Are they any less important because I have no memory of their impact on my life at some certain point in time? Do I exist more because someone remembers me, and I do not remember them? Are those who maintain friendships from childhood to their deathbed of more import to one's desire not to be forgotten? And do those with great memories for names and people have a special place in the Hall of Memories that keeps others alive far longer? Well, it's all great potential for debate, but the reality is that virtually no one is remembered by those who are born after they have died. We may remember their deeds of daring, bravery, or ne'er-do-well take on life from something we read, or were told, or saw in a film, or on an internet recording. But we do not remember the living, breathing person with the foibles and gallantries. And it is in those personality clues, the handshake, the glint of the eye, their drawl, and their passions, there the person is to be found and remembered, and all else is make-believe. Historically, there are names that stand out over the millennia, but we remember them for what they did, not who they were. Whether Cleopatra, Florence Nightingale, or Ma Baker, Hannibal, John Wycliffe, or Jack the Ripper, we remember them because their names were recorded and their stories or what they represent, for good or for ill, or their brave deeds or their villainy. They are recorded and then repeated, and it's as testimonials as to what we ought to do or not do that gains them a place in the history books. But we do not know them. At best, we only remember what we have learned about them from others, whether in artwork, written testimonials, the fiction and legends that surround famous folks. But their dreams and their exploits come to us secondhand. We know their names, we know what was recorded and retained, but we do not know or remember them. Genealogy has become quite the hobby for many of us and a great time consumer over the many months of limited contact of COVID, but readily available online. In seeking to trace our lines back through the mists of time and generations, we're exploring our own personal history book. We want to know what made us, what came before us, what characteristics we inherited, where our forebears came from, why they came here, what they did, how they looked, their faith, their fortune, and their foibles. And we can learn quite a bit For instance, we discover that we can take great satisfaction from tracking down the black sheep as well as the shepherd. And admittedly, we take a certain guilty pleasure in discovering the scandals of the rascal rather than in revealing the virtue of the prude. It's an unexpected delight of the hobby. But although we can share and record their deeds or where they lived, their occupation or their crimes, we cannot remember them. We can only trace, examine, and record pieces of their history and pass the results along to another generation. A grand way to explore one's own personal history, and yet, much as it fascinates and attracts, and endless hours can be spent poring over old documents, attempting to track down just one more elusive clue. It is a delicious indulgence, not a remembering. You may speculate on their motives. You may delight in their triumphs. You may wish fervently that they had written names and dates on the back of photographs. Hopefully that will inspire you to do a bit of writing of names and dates and places and whys in your own photo album. But ultimately, it still remains secondhand. Bits of paper recording a census, a purchase, a deed, a marriage, a baptism, or a newspaper's obituary. Carving your initials in a tree or writing them on a rock, tossing a bottle with a note into the sea, or burying it in the garden isn't a bad idea if it helps you to feel being part of being here now and when you no longer are. Surely that's why we erect tombstones, a reminder of someone who lived and loved and has gone on before us. But the best way to leave something that carries on is in helping others to be the best that they can be. And in their success, in their satisfaction, you live on. But most of all, just abandon the concern about being remembered. For those who have children, their DNA will carry on indefinitely into the future. A map for future scientists to track down where you lived, your diseases, your heritage. But the vital parts, your personality, your thoughts, your faith, your motives, and your ability to love and be loved, go with you into life eternal. So don't fear being forgotten. It's in the nature of humanity and our being that who we are will be forgotten. Hopefully, the good we do leaves others better for our having passed this way. And even more hopefully, those who explore what we did in this world will be charitable and judge us by our times and our values, and not impose upon us the judgment of another time and place, a new place that faces new challenges and comes up with new solutions, and then only finds fault in ours. And I look forward to re-establishing connections with those I've forgotten, those names I could not conjure, that the smiles and the tears of this lifetime shared will not be lost or forgotten. For in the realm of God, all is made well, and there, love has conquered all. So may it be. Amen. Well, I trust you are all back to school, back to work, and working at this new normal with all the passion and dedication you can muster. After all, for what do you want to be remembered if not your passions, your deeds, and your loves? But who remembers, and who can, and how?